We have these tools that we use in lots of ways. And it occurred to me that no one had yet deeply sampled a Black choir. And so in my own work, I was like, well, doggone it, I wish I had one of these. Well, let's make one for myself and for everybody else. So it was really kind of something I wanted. Yeah. And that I identified was missing. This is a new venture for me. I'm so thrilled to be partnering with Spitfire. I am a longtime customer of Spitfire. I've spent a lot of money on their products. So little did I know that I would one day create something with Spitfire. So I'm honored to be doing that. And I guess I have to add sample developer.
Love that. It's a growing resume always.
Film composer, etc. But yeah, this is my first time ever creating or co-creating a sample library. And so it's very exciting to me. The idea came to my mind actually more than 3 years ago. And I made the first, I was about to say phone call, but it was an email that I sent 3 years ago. And here we are 3 years later about to release the product. So it's a milestone for me, and I'm really excited to see how it's received.
How long did it take for the actual process of creating this?
We went into the studio, I believe it was April of this year. So of course, leading up to those sessions, there was a bit of planning, probably 2 or 3 months of intense planning, and then we did the recordings in April. And then between April and now, the Spitfire team has been very hard at work editing and coalescing the library into a usable form that can be, sent out to customers. So maybe, the crux or the bulk of the work has been about maybe 8 months. But 3 years since I first reached out and said, hey, why don't we take a look at this?
What would you say at this stage of your career contributing? You've gone from creating within a band to Take 6 and then arranging and working with other people and collaborating in a really deep way. But now, as you said, this is a totally new thing for you. What does it mean to add this to your list of accomplishments now? Why was it important to do that?
I didn't view it as, I need to add something to my resume. I actually identified what I felt was something that was missing in the available tools that we as composers use. And when I score a movie, I'm watching pictures, and I have purchased libraries from companies like Spitfire so that I can play the strings and I can play the horns or different pianos, all of these different, we buy these instruments that are very meticulously sampled so that we can record in our studios and emulate these sounds. Sometimes they get kept, sometimes maybe it might get replaced by a live orchestra later, but we have these tools that we use in lots of ways. And it occurred to me that no one had yet deeply sampled a Black choir. And so in my own work, I was like, well, doggone it, I wish I had one of these. Well, let's make one for myself and for everybody else. So it was really kind of something I wanted, and that I identified was missing. I won't be cagey about it. I reached out to Hans Zimmer, the amazing composer, and I said, Hans, what do you think about this idea? He goes, oh my God, you have to talk to Spitfire immediately. And within 20 minutes, there was an email to the Spitfire, to the owners of the company, Hans saying, I think he said, if you guys don't do this, you're crazy, something like that. Of course he was, tongue in cheek, but he seemed excited about it, and they were too, and now here we are. A lot of the singers were singers that I have used in my productions over the years. One of the bases, and just as an aside, one of the several things that sets this choir library apart from others is what Spitfire is calling the mega bass section.
Yes,
because we've got these guys singing. I mean, these things are going to rattle people's speakers. They're singing so low. And back to your question, I I handpicked Alvin Chia from Take Six because I sang with him for so many years, and he is just a ridiculous, ridiculous bass, and I mean ridiculous in the best way. Alvin from Take Six, along with other bassists from Los Angeles, we handpicked because I wanted that bass section to really shake the rafters. And the same with the Sopranos. I mean, they're all amazing singers, but again, what sets this library apart, I think, are the extremes. The high sopranos belting at the top of their lungs, way up in the rafters, and then those low basses. Neither of those has been captured in libraries before. I love my altos, I love my tenors, and they're all fantastic. Those extremes are just icing on the cake. About half of the choir is made up of singers that I had worked with. Just talk about a dream choir. And these people, I mean, not only are they amazing singers, some of them are amazing pianists or songwriters. They record with all sorts of artists. I mean, they're each accomplished in many, many, many ways.
Yeah.
And for most of them, singing is one thing that they do well among many. So this was really a powerhouse choir. I mean, it was just, and when we started recording, just everyone in the booth was just, they just couldn't believe the sound that we were capturing. So, so thrilled, so happy with this group, and really, really excited about what we captured. I couldn't be happier.
You chose to transition from Take Six to then working as a composer in the 90s. And you were such an important part of classic films that I love so much. I truly, A Walk to Remember, The Wedding Planner, those two alone are amazing, and the list goes on. And usually, though, I feel like people transition the other way around. They start in production or composing, and then they want to be more front of, stage or... So I would love to know a little bit about your process in wanting to move to the other side of things, to compose, and maybe some of your inspirations to do that, if you had any.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, when and of course, Take Six is a huge and very important and beloved part of my history. But when I left the group, everyone assumed it was to go solo because that's what you do. You leave a group and you go solo. That was never what I wanted to do at all. I took it seriously, but I never...
That wasn't the aspiration.
That wasn't aspirational for me. So once my time with the group ended, it wasn't that I wanted to do more singing or be in the spotlight. I wanted to go back to writing and creating and producing. That's what I enjoyed, and then ultimately scoring movies. But I really enjoy, working with artists and taking a song and creating that track for them or writing an original song for them. I enjoy that whole aspect, and that's what I've enjoyed doing all these many years, sort of straddling the fence between producing artists, which includes writing and arranging for artists, or writing for movies, whether it's a score for movies or songs for movies. I enjoy all of that, and so that's what I have focused on in these last many years.
I think that, a choir library, one that's rooted in Black voices, is so beautiful, as we were talking before. And I'd love to know first how you, as a creator, would use this on a track. If you received, you didn't know anything about it, you get to experience this for the first time. As a consumer, as a user, how would you start using it?
Well, it's funny. I think I have two answers to that question, and both are sort of practical in that I've actually used the library. For example, I had to compose the piece of music that is used in the trailer for the library. And that was the first time that I sat down with those sounds and said, okay, what can I do with this? And I sat down and I pulled up some oohs and I pulled up some ahs and I pulled up some other sound. And I just started, I was inspired. I mean, I was truly inspired, even though it was a tool that I created or co-created. I really had fun pulling up all these sounds and going, okay, what can I create? And of course, I also had I was on a mission because I wanted to showcase the library. So there was a bit of an agenda just in terms of using a lot of the sounds. If I were writing a piece, I might not use as many sounds in one little piece. I think the piece is 40 seconds long, 45 seconds, and I used a lot of the sounds. Well, I mean, I think it's a really inspirational tool. I think when people get it under their fingertips, I think they're going to have a lot of fun because the sounds are just beautiful. I mean, and then also to your question, I mean, I'm working on a couple of large projects now. I'm working on a stage musical and a movie. And just about 3 weeks ago, I wrote a song for the stage musical, and I needed a choir. And I thought, I think I know what I can use. And I pulled up Mervyn Warren Choir, and I put that on my demo for that song. And when I sent it to the producers, they were like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. Where did you get the choir? I was like, well, funny, you should ask. So I think people are going to find a lot of uses for this. Yes, there are other choir libraries out there, but this one has a particular sound. And it's that sound that I knew was missing from what's available to composers. I wanted to make sure that potential customers understood that this library is not a one-trick pony. As I've mentioned before, everyone loves rousing gospel music with hand claps and all that, and we have hand claps in the library. But that sound, those voices, and that sound of those voices together is a really versatile sound that can be used in a lot of different things, whether it's pop productions or R&B productions or even dance music or film scores. You know, a lot of people may or may not be aware that a lot of times there are choir sounds in film scores. Maybe they're not singing words. They might be singing syllables. Never before has anyone sampled a black choir in this way that could be used in a film score with these kinds of syllables, ooh, ah, and oh, and humming, and even the word yeah.
But I love that you touched on a particular sound, because this is not just, it's not just titled the Black Choir, it's the Mervyn Warren Choir. So how would you describe the Mervyn Warren sound?
That is a really hard question to answer. Some people know my jazz vocal work that I've done with Take Six and the Manhattan Transfer and others. Some people know the gospel work that I've done in big movies like The Preacher's Wife or Sister Act 2 or Joyful Noise. But I've also scored movies like comedies, or I've scored dramas. I produced the band Chicago. I bet you some people don't know that.
Nice.
So I think of myself as a very versatile musician, but I enjoy writing in all sorts of different styles. And sometimes in a movie, you know, even though the movie is, say, a comedy, like you mentioned, The Wedding Planner, there was one scene where I had to write a tango, you know, and I had so much fun writing a tango, you know, that dance thing, you know. So I really love having to do something different like that. Now, nobody has ever called me and said, we want you to produce a tango album. And probably no one ever will. But I got to write a tango. And I'm really proud of that little thing. It's been used in some other projects. So, but I'm answering your question just to say I like a lot of different things. So to me, if you say what is the Mervyn Warren sound, I hope the Mervyn Warren sound is, in a very broad sense, excellent. And that's one of my watchwords. I do like harmony. I love infusing harmony, you know, in what I do. It's not always appropriate. Sometimes in a film score, you know, the music needs to get out of the way, and it needs to be simple, and it needs to be very, very understated. So I can't always put my personality in everything that I do. We have to write in service of the project. But I like music that makes me feel something, no matter what it is.
Excellence is clearly very important to you. I'm sure you've learned so much and grown, and are still growing in many ways. But are there any things that you feel like you learned from being in proximity and in collaboration with some of those people that still stick with you to this day?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would even go back to a couple of names that of people who are not famous who were very influential on me, and that was my primary choral conductor in college, Alma Blackman. I learned so much from her. She was also my theory teacher, so I took music theory from her.
Beautiful.
But I spent many years singing under her in her choir, the Aeolians, at Oakwood University. So I learned so much from her. I learned so much from others that people may not know. One of my mentors, a guy named Shelton Kilby, who was a fantastic arranger. I learned so much from him when I was growing up. But of the people you mentioned, for example, Quincy, I learned so much from Quincy. We were introduced to him. I was introduced to him while I was still with Take Six,
Okay.
and then he subsequently, I think I ended up working on at least 3 of his albums. Back on the Block, Quincy's Juke Joint, and then Soul Bossa Nostra. Doing everything from vocals to keyboards to string arrangements to writing songs, writing lyrics, producing, co-producing. I've done all of that on Quincy Jones albums,
Wow.
which for me is like, I mean, when I think about it, you know, a little kid growing up in Alabama, listening to Quincy's album, The Dude, never did I imagine that later in life, he would be calling me to write arrangements, or he would be calling me to co-produce something with him. So I feel just to say that I was honored is just, it doesn't feel like it does justice to what I feel about what I learned from and was able to glean from working with Quincy. I learned so much from him, and what a huge loss to the planet. We lost him, as you know, not long ago. But so yes, I've learned from everyone, and to David Foster, I've learned from looking over their shoulders and seeing what they're doing, just being in the room with these people. I've learned so much, and it's really been quite a journey.
How do you, like you mentioned, not just on the film side, but even, you know, in working with artists individually, so a lot of these artists are so different. How do you adapt to different musical contexts and styles?
More often than not, when I work with someone, for example, I mean, I think of, I worked with Barbra Streisand a couple of times. I was somewhat familiar with her body of work. And so I'm able to just sort of think about that artist and how she or he might sing this song. And so as I'm working on the arrangement, I'm drawing from what they've done in the past and saying, oh my God, she would sound great doing this. Oh my God, she would sound great doing that. I don't know. I'm somehow able to sort of think about what they're able to do, which I cannot mimic, but I know I have it sort of quantified in my head. And when I sit down at the piano, I can hear that person's voice as I'm writing or as I'm arranging, and I am imagining what they might do. And of course, with somebody like Whitney, who had a different lick every single time she sang something, you cannot predict what, I mean, I was astonished working with her.
Wow.
And well, first of all, to have that voice on my arrangements was just mind-blowing, But then every time she would sing, and it was different each time, and I was like, how do you think of these things, But by the same token, I think she respected me because I do sing, and on the rare occasion where I might have wanted her to hold a note or say maybe, or actually that melody is, and I might sing something to her, I think she respected the fact that I was able to, or maybe brazen enough to sing something to her. And we had, so much fun in the studio. So with each artist, I just sort of, I don't know how I do it. I
like,
somehow put myself, I get in a mindset of, okay, I'm working on a Whitney Houston song, or I'm working on a Boyz II Men song, or I'm working on a Manhattan Transfer song, and I just I conform.
Yeah, I love
I
that.
conform, and yet I always want to bring something new and exciting.
So I'm curious about whether you have, from within the buckets that you've worked in or beyond, a favorite genre, and if not, or even if you do, where you would like to see the Mervyn Warren Choir used within any of the genres that you've worked with, or that you maybe wouldn't expect to see it used, but would like to.
Okay. I grew up playing jazz. And I think, like most jazz musicians, we love our jazz, but then to make a living, we have to do other things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love all styles of music, and I've done country, and I've done pop, and I've done, all sorts of stuff. And whatever I'm doing, I make sure that I give 200%. But somehow, I think I grew up and my ear was drawn to jazz. And I don't know if people, like listening to cartoons growing up, like the Flintstones and the Jetsons, those theme songs are jazz. Those theme songs are jazz, and my ears would perk up. I heard that harmony. I was like, oh my God, what is that? What is that? And I had to figure it out. I had to go to the piano and figure it out. So if I have to pick a genre, jazz might be one of my favorites, but I certainly, like you said, it's like, I don't want to exclude my other children.
Others.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I really do think this library is going to be, I think we're going to hear it in all sorts of styles of music because we very deliberately recorded it in such a way that it sort of transcends genre. I know that may sound like woo-woo speak, but I really do think, I mean, if you were writing a pop song and you needed some oohs in the background or some ahs, it's perfect for that. Or, the trailer piece that I wrote has some influences of jazz. I held myself back. But it has some jazz influences. In film score, where there are choir singing with orchestra, it's perfect for that. I mean, the list could go on and on. I mean, an R&B song with some background vocals it could be used for, or even a country song with oohs and ahs in the background. I'm really excited, as I said earlier, to see what kinds of things people sit down and do. Because as I said, when I sat down with for the first time and thought, okay, let me write something with this, I was surprised at how many ideas flooded into my head once I started playing it. Before I started playing it, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but it took me on its own journey, and I hope that's what happens with other people who play the library. I think that for a lot of people, when they think of a Black choir, only one sound comes to mind for them. And that's, as I mentioned earlier, that sound that we all love of a rousing gospel choir and clapping their hands and singing something. We all love that. But I don't think that often people think of using Black voices in the context of a film score. Or in other settings. And so we set out, as I sort of mentioned earlier, we set out to record a library that could be, a very versatile library that could be used in a lot of different contexts. And this is a sound it's a different sound. But Black voices have a different timbre. And even though you have sopranos singing a certain note, Black voices are going to sound a little bit different than a traditional choir library might sound. So I wanted to capture that, as I may be repeating myself, but I wanted to make sure that composers had this option.
Yeah.
And for many of them, it will be a new option. There's a different tone quality that they're going to get with this library that will just expand their palette, I think, in a wonderful and rich way. And I'm just thrilled to be a part of the first library that really comprehensively samples this sound. There have been some attempts. There have been some some smaller packages that have been put out, but this is the first time that anyone has gone into this detail. It really is something unique and new that I think people are going to have a lot of fun using.
Beyond that, what would you say your legacy, your hopes for your legacy is? I know that's a big question, but
That's a big
maybe,
question.
personally, professionally, what is, what you want to be? How do you want to be
You
known?
know, I just want to continue creating what I hope is great music. Um, this is a little different, as we sort of touched on before, in that I've this time created a tool that will help other people create music. That's
That's
something
new.
different for me, but there's that's fun. I love the idea of that. But there's something I think there's something about my sound or my sensibility is infused
Mm.
in this library. I won't say my sound because people are going to do with it whatever they do, and they're going to come up with things that I never would have imagined. But all of this, I think, is something that I'm just really excited to be a part of. And other than that, I want to continue making more music. I'm working on a stage musical now, and who
Mm.
knows, these are risky ventures, and who
Yeah.
knows what's going to happen. But this is my first time writing a stage musical, and I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations.
I hope to continue to do movies and to produce artists and just hopefully making people smile and feel something.
That's the goal always. I
Mhm.
think you've done that excellently already. So thank
Thank
you for
you.
your contributions. And I'm sure we'll see a lot more in
I
the
hope
years to
so.
come. But yeah, thank you.